All right, boys, welcome to the Culture Couch Live. Look, I think we'd be remiss of us not to start passing on our best wishes to Dean Jones' family and friends. I mean, it's a really shocking day today, and I guess being a contemporary of most of us, I'm 57 and Dino was 59, and through the sporting world, I guess our paths cross fairly regularly for Victoria and through the Australian cricket team and things like that. And I know you boys are big cricket fans and big sporting fans. So look, it's a really, really sad day for everyone in Australia. He was a great sports person, but I can't speak highly enough of him the times I come across him. So to Dean Jones' family and Dean Jones' close friends, I think on behalf of all of us boys, we'd like to pass on our best wishes.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
One thing from me, Dino is still my favourite memory of cricket when Dino asked Curtly Ambrose to take those wristbands off. Like I watched it again last night, sent it through, and geez, I laughed and I was trying to explain it to Liz, but it was just like the West Indies at that time was such a force, and he just did the unthinkable. And I remember watching it live going, what the hell are you doing, Dean? Like, what are you doing? But it is probably my favourite memory out of cricket. It was just fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're all going to have different memories. And I suppose that once we get over the shock and extreme disappointment, and then you start thinking about those times. But as I said, just to finish off on that, to Dean's family and friends, certainly our condolences are with you all. All right, boys, we'll move on to the Culture Couch. I think this is our 4th edition. So thanks, welcome Em, Woz and Jez. Let's get straight into it. A good question here from Susan. We hear a lot about leadership groups in football and in sport, and they're really, really important. Are they equally as important in the corporate world? Em, I might throw to you to start off with. Great question. So give us some thoughts on that.
I think the short answer is 100% yes. They might function moderately different, but it's really, from our perspective, I think the leadership group really need to display a united front, have a very common language, especially as they start to have leadership team meetings, and then their message that goes down to their particular teams needs to be very consistent. It can be very debilitating to a culture if the leaders leave executive team or leadership meetings and then say different things. So it's extremely important for that unity as an organisation. I've got a couple of clients right now that are going through that very thing and really making sure that they've got a united front. And then the other piece, I think, is withholding the behaviours of the culture code. They have to be the real role models and really keep representing and raising the standards and the bar for those behaviours of the code throughout the organisation for the culture to be very strong in a sustainable way.
Yeah, absolutely. Woz, I'll throw to you because I think you made a couple of really interesting points. First of all, they have to be role models, and it's, again, whether it's a footy club, it doesn't matter. Whether it's a corporation. I think the other thing though that I see is often, to Emil's point, they probably don't see themselves necessarily as a team. Whereas in a sporting environment, you play a game on the weekend and you've got an outcome at the end of the week. Do you think that's the case? Do you think leadership, C-suite teams, leadership groups, whatever you want to call them, maybe need to spend a little bit more time together, whether that's socially or informally, just building really strong relationships, which happen at a sporting club regularly?
Yeah, I think the difference in the corporate world depends on how you structure them. Is ultimately the leadership team might be heads of individual departments that don't actually work together on a moment-by-moment basis. So I think first off, that's good in a way because you get collective opinions or information coming from different departments that you might not get on a regular basis. But also you sort of also get different personalities as well in that group. I'm not sure what it's like in the footy club sense, Roosie, but in the corporate space, especially at Medifarm Labs, I've got almost the entire wheelhouse of personalities in that leadership group, which also is complementary in this scenario where we're making big decisions, because you get different sentiments for those decisions and different I guess insights within departments that might drive decision making around that. Yeah, so I think it's important to make sure that team meet regularly. On our side, we have actually meetings 3 times a week with that group, because it's important, especially during these times, for those groups to be in dialogue consistently, because you get a lot of blind spots when you're not seeing what's happening inside other departments as well. So very critical proportion to have a good leadership team, for sure.
Yeah, Murph, I love what said about the personalities. I do remember at Sydney, we had a couple of really strong personalities. Probably it was after we won in 05, and it was sort of, I could sense the other leaders were just sort of sitting back and letting the other two do it. I mean, how important is it for everyone to get a voice in that leadership group?
Yeah, it's vital, Rizzy. I think a couple of things, and we've been working really closely with a couple of leadership groups in the last couple of weeks, you and I, and so a couple of really good points I think we need to take out of that was, the first one is it's important the leadership group, whether it's sport or corporate, takes an enterprise perspective on the organisation. So we don't all just walk in and talk about our own division. We have to take a really high level perspective on what's going on across the organisation and ask questions. So to your point, getting perspectives on different things. If there's two people clashing, then the third or other members of the team should be intervening and asking questions and almost diffusing scenarios. But I think the most important thing, and this came out really strongly this week with one of the teams we're working with, Regis, didn't it, was we've got to be there to support each other. Like, we have to support each other, and we have to be prepared to ask for help. So if people aren't prepared to ask for help, we're not creating the safety, we're not building the relationships that you continually talk about. So I think enterprise perspective, be prepared to contribute across departmental conversations and support each other and ask for help. And then probably the last thing for me would be make sure we build in systems and schedules that allow us to be the team we need to be. And I think you mentioned having lunch together. So I think it's really easy for people to say, yeah, we've got a good leadership team, they meet, blah, blah, blah. But the truth is it effective? Are our meetings effective? Are we supporting each other? Are we asking for help? But there's a bit more to it than just to straight up, set up a team. And probably my question for you, Reezy, when you've seen leadership teams work well, what are the characteristics? What are sort of the 2 or 3, or is it not that simple, things that you see?
I think the interesting thing, Murph, is I think there's a misconception at a footy club we just throw them together and that just works. I think what the 3 of you have said is you have to work on it. It's not a case of just picking a leadership group at Sydney, picking a leadership group at Melbourne and saying, oh, great, we've got a leadership group, away we go. So trying to narrow it down to 2 or 3 is probably difficult. Yeah. I would say the number one thing is you have to make an effort. You can't just put a group together and then think, oh, fantastic, we're off and running. I don't care where it is. So all those tips I 100% agree with, but my final summary on that is make the effort. Make the effort around relationships, make the effort around understanding each other's personalities, make the efforts of asking questions, supporting each other. But again, the other big thing I talk about is you are a team. It doesn't matter whether you're in the marketing department, the sales department, the accounts department. You've got to have an understanding. You're creating something together. And that's probably the biggest thing that I see, that they probably don't necessarily see themselves as a team.
Yeah,
and if I'm a CEO, I'm saying we need to work on this, guys. I don't care what division you're in. You collectively are going to take this team forward, or you're going to take it backwards. So, but great tips, boys. The second question.
Just sorry, Rizzy, before we go on, I don't know if we push this question back to next week, or we but as we were chatting, it came to my mind. What happens if you get the wrong person in the leadership group? So, do we want to push that question back to next week, or do we?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Great question. Let's Emil's the guru on questions, so get your pen out and write that down, because I love that. But even for those of you listening, maybe extrapolate on that for us as well. What are you seeing in your leadership groups.
Yeah.
Is there more specific ways you want us to answer this question as well? Because I think we could probably go on for another hour on this question. But yeah, let's pick that up next week, and let's hopefully get some add-on questions as well. But the next question is probably a follow-up question to it anyway. Really, it's from Jeff. How do you make culture that is sustainable? Great question. And we'll go in and hopefully work with companies over periods of time. But often we will say at our workshops, boys, if we're only doing the one-day workshop, we will often say at the end of it, X, Y, Z. So maybe hand over to you, Jez, and say, what is that X, Y, Z? What is it that we need our companies to do in order to make it sustainable?
Thanks for that handball, mate. You want me to deliver the silver bullet. I think for me, it depends what we're talking about sustainability in terms of making it work on a day-to-day basis or making it work over a period of years. Yeah. So I'm going to answer the longer one first, if that's okay. For me, it's about understanding. Again, we talk about all the time, values, behaviours, putting in place good role models at each critical juncture of leadership. So making sure we've got right leaders in the right spots. But then it's about induction and recruitment. So if we recruit the right people and we induct them well, and then we have a really good leadership development program, so that we are training people in the way we do it. So, at Geelong or Richmond or Port Adelaide, it's the Geelong way or the Richmond way or the Port Adelaide way. And so when young people come through the organisation, we make sure they're the right people and we train them and we induct them so that they absolutely understand what it is to be part of our organisation. And if they don't fit, well, then they behave their way out. But when the leaders sort of move out, when the CEO moves out, the captain, the coach, whoever it is, you've got people coming up who understand what it is to be a part of that culture and that organisation. And I think that gives you long-term sustainability, but you have to be clear about who you are and what you stand for first.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. I'm going to finish with you, Woz, because I'm going to talk to you, Woz, as the CEO. But Em, do you want to pick up on that? I mean, we do talk about acting your way into the system and acting your way out of the system. If you don't know what the system is, how do you know how to behave within the culture? And then, as we also say, then you just leave your culture to chance. If you get good people in, it seems to work okay. But if you don't, it just goes down the gurgler. So pick up on maybe a couple of Merv's points as well.
I mean, it keeps coming back to reviews, the systematic reviews of checking in on results or talent and team and behaviour and having a conversation about the two together. I see a lot of corporate teams that we start working with, they celebrate when they get good results, but they actually don't check in on the behaviour that's getting them the results. And the challenge around that is you can actually behave badly and get good results. And you can also behave really well and not get the results that you want. But if you have a conversation about the two in tandem, you'll get the insights and learnings out of the experience, irrespective of whether you get the results or not. We can't just be really happy you get good results. And an example of that is even Google. Their economic results-wise, they're off the charts. But two years ago, they had 10,000 people walk out of their business because of the internal sexism and bad behavior, because they took their eyes off actually the way they were getting their results, because the scoreboard was looking pretty good. Let's be honest, Google's scoring left, right and center. So I think it comes back to having reviews and conversations about performance and not just saying, yay, we won because we got great results, but actually checking in on the behaviors as well.
Yeah, and it's a great lead into the question I was going to ask because how hard is it? The boys are talking more around the process. How hard is it as the CEO to continually bring it back to the process away from the outcome? Because a lot of people listening, today would be in the C-suites or even CEOs. They've got shareholders. They've got people relying on them for making money and all those sorts of things. And we will always talk about process-wise. How hard is it for the CEO sitting out there listening to get it back to process all the time, which then means your culture will be created over a period of time through habits rather than focusing on the outcome?
Yeah, I think for me, probably in the last since like having performance by design sort of bestowed on me many years ago, that's the biggest learning as a CEO is and I'm an outcome driven person, is that red blue energy, task orientated, outcome driven. But ultimately, if you can only focus on the process and not the outcome, your culture is ensured. Simple as that. I think the kryptonite, as Jared said, to failure is like even an NRL club bringing in a new coach or bringing in a new senior leadership team member, and they don't carry out that same culture or they don't understand it, and that kryptonite is morphing into something that's not exactly what you bestowed early, but also not just new people entering the organisation, which obviously is managed through that onboarding process. It's also the culture can become a little bit stale if you don't continue to optimize as well. So it's just changing things up a bit, adding new questions, getting deeper in terms of vulnerability, opening yourself up to other things and conversations, not just going to the pub, going out and doing different activities together also just continually to communicate with the team as well, and being open and honest, and also just praising people in terms of, it doesn't matter whether you've been in the culture for years, if you're getting feedback that's good, it still feels good irrespective of how long you've and also still nipping in the bud if someone's not doing it right. It's a small little thing. If you've been in that organization, people should know better. So a lot of different factors for sure.
And it's great, boys, isn't it? Because the two questions go hand in hand, haven't they? I mean, you really can't, rely. You can't have a poor leadership group, referring to the first question, Jasmine, and have a sustainable culture. So they really go hand in hand, don't they, both of them?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, when the person, new people come into the company because the organisation grows, the whole dynamic of that individual team they enter and the organisation changes with one or two people. So the system has to obviously they have to work their way into it through Jez's point about the recruiting system, because you recruit through your code, and then when they're onboarded or inducted, they're integrated into the system. So immediately they're joining meetings where they're having, starting meetings, checking in on behaviours, getting recognised for their behaviour, more so than just their results. And immediately it's a culture of, okay, well, I'm going to get recognised for good performance. I'm going to get challenged on poor behaviour. I'm going to expect to be, my voice is going to be heard and expected to be shared. All these things matter, and a good cadence will actually carry that through.
Yeah, great discussion, boys. Fantastic. Hopefully some really good tips that the listeners can execute over the next week. Thanks very much, boys. Culture Couch Live. We'll see you again next week.
Don't forget the questions. Don't forget to enter your questions into LinkedIn for future Culture Couches.